Robert Plank Show, episode 355. Fail, succeed, repeat. Make a choice and have a plan for your entrepreneurial path with Cashflow King Matt Motil. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're talking right now with Dr. Matt Motil, and he's a real estate investor and agent. He's a contributor to the Good Men Project. He has a book called Man on Fire, which you can find at manonfirebook.com. He's the host of the Cashflow King podcast. He teaches college courses, and he basically wants to tell us about all these cool things that he has going on, and we're going to hear all about them. So, hey, Mr. Matt, how are things today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Super fantastic. So I'm glad that you're on. And so real quick, so you do this real estate stuff. You teach people how to get cash flow and quit their jobs and stuff like that. But you're also a doctor. So what exactly are you a doctor in? Out of
Uh,
curiosity.
I have a PhD in business.
Okay, cool. And so can you sort of like just kind of tell us about like a little bit to catch us up, like kind of how you got from when you started to where you are now? Because there's like the PhD in business. I'm seeing that you used to be an engineer. Now you do college courses. So can you kind of just like walk us through kind of like what you're all about and kind of the real quick kind of history of you?
Sure. Yeah. I guess the elevator pitch would be that I was raised in a middle class family in the Midwest. College was not an option. I was just, my parents were both college educated and understood the value, especially back in, like the late 80s, early 90s when I would have been growing up and going to school, elementary and junior high and that kind of thing. So my brother and I were just always raised that you go to college. That's what you do. So, it wasn't kind of a question of, well, am I going to go or not? It was just kind of, well, what do I want to study and where do I want to go? And with that mindset, everything I did in high school was just prepare me to go to college. It was, I need a job. I need to do community stuff so that my resume looks good for college applications. I need to take AP classes, all that kind of stuff, so I can get good grades, get into a good school for what I want to do. And when I was in college, it was just kind of, at least the first couple of years, it was solely focused on get good grades, have a good resume so that I can get a good job when I'm done. It was just kind of how I was wired, the mindset. And what we started doing in college, I joined a fraternity, and we started systematically taking over campus. We had this bright idea that if we could have all of our members become like executive board members on all these different campus organizations, literally we, as a fraternity, we could basically dictate exactly what happened at school. And so, we kind of enacted this bright idea and made it work. And there was a lot of momentum in that, right? There was a lot of power in being able to do that kind of thing. And it kind of put me on this mental trajectory, at least, of, man, I can't wait to get out of school. I'm going to take over the world. And it's a very naive thought process when you leave the school setting, go to get a job out in industry, and you realize very quickly that, oh man, I'm an employee and I'm basically plugging into somebody else's system, and they don't really care about what I did in school. They don't really care about what I know. It's just kind of here, we need somebody to fill this seat, so please sit here, shut up, put your head down and work. And that kind of was a bummer, obviously. And it started this process of me trying to get back to that momentum that I had felt in school. And it took me a long time to realize that I was never going to get it as an employee, no matter what my job title was, no matter what level of importance in an organization I was. And I got really burned out. And what happens when you burn out is you look for things to distract you from the areas of your life that you're not really all that excited about. And so I went back to school a couple times, got an MBA, went to law school, and then eventually got a PhD. And every time I went back to school, I was trying to run away from something. I was running away from, unfulfilled job life, unfulfilled marriage, things of that nature. And the interesting thing happened was once I got done with the doctorate, was you become very unemployable, believe it or not. And it's an intimidating title to people that maybe don't even have a college degree, especially. And so I was in the construction industry, and so to now have this, somewhat intimidating title and education, unless you're going to go into research or you're going to go into higher education and teach, your only other option really, and almost out of necessity, is to start a business. And what I realized very quickly, because at this point I was, and I had been I'd done real estate investing as kind of like a side hustle for years. And right about the end of 2015, I decided I'm going to get a real estate license. So I don't have to rely on real estate agents anymore to help me out. I'll have easier access to inventory and whatnot. And we were starting our company, our real estate holding company, and kind of trying to take off and do things more legit than just owning rental property. And New Year's Eve of 2015, I was fired from the job that I was working on. And we kind of made the decision because I was going to start classes right away in January, and I was going to do them on nights and weekends and whatnot. And we made the decision, my wife and I, to basically switch classes to day classes and pull the plug on ever going back to work. And we were in a position at that point where our rental properties were earning enough passive income to where, the bills were paid for. So we had that level of security, but we did like the additional security of having I had a 6-figure income coming in. And, that kind of started the route of, okay, I'm going to go into business for myself. And if I need some extra money, I can sell real estate on the side because I'm going to have a real estate license. And what ended up happening was my wife went back to school. She just graduated to be a nurse practitioner. And so when she went back to school, she went part-time at the hospital. She stepped down from a management role back to a staff nurse and as a part-time staff nurse. And it was like, oh man, we need some money. So I said, well, let me go out and maybe I'll try to fling some houses. And I figured out really, really quickly that that's a lot of work, and it requires a lot of money to make money in that business. And I didn't really like it. And I'd always done the investing thing, and that was why I'd originally gotten licensed. And, as an entrepreneur, you go down one path and you hit a roadblock, and then you got to make a decision. I'm going to go one way or the other. And then you head down that path and you hit a roadblock and you got to make a decision. And so we call it the entrepreneurial shuffle. You just kind of got a bunch of things cooking, and eventually something takes off and gains traction. And that's kind of where we've ended up now with starting an investment company here where we help real estate investors from all over the world invest in the 3 major markets that we do business in here in the Midwest. And so, you're in California or you're in Australia or wherever you would be, we basically are your eyes and ears and boots on the ground here to allow you to have success in our markets with very high yields on rental property without actually having to physically be here. So we have all of those relationships and we take care of everything for you. So it's kind of a nice fit. The thing with the teaching classes, because I was doing that once I got done with school, when I started my own company, what I realized was I have a PhD in business, right? So I should be able to start a company, and this thing should basically, I know exactly what to do. I know how to do it. I know how to run it. I have got all the, the psychology of setting it up the right way and everything like that. And the reality is I didn't. And when you go down that route, I know a lot of the theory of business management and business administration, but the reality was when it came to starting my own company and running my own company, I was a little lost. And that realization to me was frustrating, but it was also discouraging from the standpoint of here I was with a terminal degree, and I couldn't even start the thing that I was basically teaching people how to do. And the interesting thing about that was I started then to stand up in front of class, and I was teaching both business classes and construction engineering classes at a couple of the schools here in the Cleveland market. And I would stand up in front of the class, and I basically had this realization that higher education is teaching people how to be really good employees. We're not teaching people how to be entrepreneurs at all. So if you want to start a business, that's probably the worst thing to do would be to go to college. and I hate to say that, obviously, with 3 degrees on the wall in my office. But at the end of the day, just like we would say college isn't for everybody, well, that's true. Not everybody should go to college. Some people are really more geared for like a technical field and things of that nature. But at the same time, I think there's the other end of the spectrum where, there's a lot of people out there that know that they want to do their own thing. They don't want to be an employee. They don't want to work for somebody else. And I would probably have that same message that, education's never a waste. But at the same time, you might waste your time and your money. Might be better spent doing something else other than, the college route necessarily. And so I've actually stopped teaching. In the last, I would say 6 months, I've basically told the schools, hey, I'm going to take a break. And it was really because I had this conflict within me of saying I don't want to perpetuate this BS that we're seeing in higher education at this point. And it's just, like I said, it's a shame. And I don't want to diminish what I've done, and I don't want to take away from, obviously, the paper that's hanging on my wall. But at the end of the day, it's the truth. And so, we need to make sure everybody hears the message and understands where I'm coming from. I'm not telling anybody don't go to college. I'm not telling anybody that college is a waste. Education is never a waste. But at the end of the day, it's not for everybody. And so you have to know yourself well enough. And that's a whole other, topic of discussion is how well can you really, truly know who you are and what you want to do as, an 18-year-old kid coming right out of high school. So, but anyway, in a nutshell, that's kind of where I'm at. I wrote a book, obviously, Man on Fire. You can get it at manonfirebook.com. It's free. Just free copy. You can just pay for shipping, and we'll send it to you. But it's basically a story I just kind of told. It's the motivation of how I went from being an employee to, doing my own thing, and the thought process of the motivations along the way of perpetually being burnt out and getting to the point where I had to, get my stuff together.
Right. And I mean, that's a super cool story, and there's so many like life lessons and things in there to unpack. And it sounds like, when you're on this path, it sounds like, you kind of try, what's that saying from like Thomas Edison? I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that it hasn't worked yet. And so
That's right.
what I like about your story is you were saying that, in college you had a certain mindset, and then that didn't apply to the real world, and then when you got your doctorate, then there was this other kind of roadblock, and it just sounds like all these different roadblocks to kind of bump up against. But at least you tried these different things, right? And at least you kind of gave it a shot and went into it and went down the path and spent a few years in it before you realized that, okay, well, it's not for me for these specific reasons, or I kind of hit a wall and then had to pivot, as opposed to a lot of people who just kind of give up before they start, right? And so you mentioned in there, and by the way, just to kind of reiterate for everyone, manonfirebook.com is the place to get that book that you mentioned. So you mentioned in there that you kind of, throughout all these different life transitions, and like outgrowing each kind of phase along the way, you say that you were perpetually burnt out. But sort of hearing your story, it sounds like you more or less finished what you started, right? You went to college, you got your degrees, you spent all these years as your project manager stuff. So you say you were burnt out, but it sounds like you at least kind of completed everything that you started. Is that right?
Well, looking at it at this point, I would say yes. And it's interesting that you bring that up because as I wrote the book was published in February of this year. And when I wrote it, it was an extremely therapeutic process. If anybody's ever written a book, they'll understand what I mean by that, especially one where you're telling your own story, is I had to dig very deep into how did I feel during that time? What was I thinking? Where was my mind at? And I here I was at the end of 2016, beginning of 2017, wrapping up all of the edits and that kind of thing in the book. And it was coming up on the 15-year anniversary of when I graduated with my undergrad. And it was a little emotional because I sat there and I thought, here I am in this position where I'm at now of where I really wanted to be when I felt like I was on this upward trajectory when I left school. And when I had that realization of, this took me 15 years to get here, it was it was almost a little disheartening because it was like, what have you been doing for 15 years? But it's interesting because as the success has taken off, especially this year, I have people reach out to me, especially on social media and stuff like that, where they say, man, I've watched your overnight success and it's been so inspirational. And I just think, yeah, my overnight success, it took me 15 years to get here. Everything that you do builds on, it's foundational, right? And so people look back, people ask me all the time, they say, do you regret going to college? Do you regret getting a PhD? Do you regret doing the things that you did, working in the construction industry for so long and things of that nature? And the answer has to be no, right? It has to be. And this is for anybody that would listen to this message at some point in time down the line. If you're even remotely happy with where you are today, you have to thank all of the experiences that you've had up to this point, because every decision that you made, every experience that you've had has led to who you are at this moment in time, right? And so if you didn't have all of that, then you wouldn't be who you are right now. And that has led to the success now and in the future. And so people say, oh, well, you've had this overnight success. And it's like, well, maybe, but I also had, 15 years of experience in the construction industry. I also had all of this education, and I tried all of these different things that didn't work, and I learned every time that something didn't work. And whether it was, well, I was a field engineer when I first got out of school. I didn't like that, and I knew I wanted to do something different, so I changed it. Well, that was an experience. I mean, and on some levels, that was a failure, right? Because I did it, I didn't like it, and so I switched gears and did something different. So I love your Thomas Edison analogy because it is so true. You have to have that mindset. You can't look at it as, oh man, I failed. But the thing is, had I not, when I was fired at the end of 2015, I could have gone home over the weekend, celebrated New Year's with my wife, stress-free, not having to go back to that job on Monday or Tuesday. But the mindset could have been, oh crap, I need to go get another job and start the process over again. And I could have stayed in that spiral of unfulfillment of, that where I was burned out. I could have stayed in that. And, we made a decision, and obviously my wife was involved in that decision as well. And so she had to be supportive, because if she hadn't been supportive of me, then that might have swayed the decision. It might have been like, no, we can't handle you not having the stability of a, steady salaried job, so go get a job. There were a lot of people at the time when I said I'm not going to get another job in construction, were like, well, but you're a senior project manager, you've got a PhD, you spent all this time and money going to school, and you've got all this experience, and you're good at it, you're going to throw that all away. And, and if I had listened to that, then, I wouldn't be doing what I am right now. I'd be doing something different. Obviously, I'd probably be sitting behind a desk. I obviously wouldn't be talking to you right now or the audience. And I'd probably be working on a bunch of different construction projects, probably somewhere, in the country doing something different. So it is a function of, I was burned out, but life happens, and it's not happening to you. It's how you react to it, right? And so when you find yourself burned out, you have to make a choice. You're either going to just continue on, and there's a lot of people that do that. They'll go through their whole career, their whole life, and they'll be old and gray, and they'll look back and they'll be like, man, I wish I would have done something different. Every day we all wake up with the decision of, am I going to get out of bed today? Am I going to go to work today? And if I'm not happy, can I make a change? The answer is always yes. It's never no. If you think it's no, you have to change your mindset, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all stuff, right? Because that's really what we're working for, is the ability to trade our time for somebody else's dollars, to then take those dollars and trade it for stuff, whether it's a roof over our head, or it's a car to drive, or it's food on the table, or clothes for our kids, or whatever it would be. It's stuff. And, you might have some consequences of not going to work today, But you can make a choice. And obviously, I don't want anybody to get on my website later and be like, I quit my job today and I have no backup plan as of right now, but you told me to do it, so we let it rip. But always have a plan of what you think you want to do or where you think you want to go. But never allow yourself that mindset of I can't do something. You're never stuck. I hear it all the time. People go, "Oh, there's nothing going on over here. The economy's horrible." Like I went to high school in northern Indiana, and it's the RV capital of the world, right? And everybody, like probably 90% of my high school class, stayed in northern Indiana and still to this day lives there. Not that there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great area. But when I see people on social media, like on Facebook, and they complain, I just go, how much is a Greyhound ticket, right? Like, get the hell out of there. What are you doing? No one is forcing you to stay there, but it's the mindset that keeps them there.
Right. I mean, that's pretty powerful, but also sort of scary if we're not aware of that. And I mean, I can relate to a lot of that stuff as far as like, success is not a straight line. And, when I was like, 20 and I imagined how things were when I was 25, I was like, it would be great if X happened. And then by the time I was 25, if X happened, I would say, well, now I'm a different person by this time. And now that doesn't really satisfy me, or maybe if I sort of took a detour, that's a whole other thing. And so there's a lot of sort of things that are hitting home for me, and just as far as just everyone's on their own path. And as you said, some people are content with staying in their hometown and perfectly fine. Some people are content with being an employee. Some people are content with being risky and trying different things. But if that's what you chose to do, that's fine. But it seems like a lot of people are kind of maybe drifting through life and don't really know what journey they're on. And then when we know the time's going to pass regardless. And when the time passes and they're just kind of just unhappy, or they don't even know why they're unhappy, but they just know that today's been like yesterday's been like the day before. Like you said, like there's no excuse for that kind of thing. You can move to a different town, you can change your mindset, you can choose to be grateful about those things that you do have, and even about being grateful about those negative experiences that you had to set yourself up for other things, or to kind of look at it a different way, like to say, well, if these things about life sort of knocked me down or discouraged me or gave me setbacks, then those can be considered maybe like a test of my willpower or my patience or my drive or whatever to get to where I need to go. So I mean, lots of just really great kind of mindset things that I'm hearing here. And I don't want to keep you up for too long here. And I know that we mentioned your main business. I think it's your main business, that remote real estate thing you have going on. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Cool. So, and I know that you had like a little bit of a blurb near the top of our show, but can you kind of tell us about like the website, and then maybe like more details about this and how people can sign up?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So my website is drmattmotil.com. It's drmattmotil.com. And on there, we've got all kinds of resources if you want to learn more about just real estate investing in general, how you can get started in real estate investing. There's a link to the book on that website as well. We've also got a podcast, which is Cashflow King, which is on iTunes and SoundCloud and all the other places that you can get podcasts. There's links to that. And we've got a blog where I'll write articles, and some of them are real estate related, some of them are mindset related and business related and things of that nature. So it's a good resource out there. That's probably the best way if anybody's listening that wants to reach out to me and say, hey, I like some of the stuff you said, how do I get started? Or, and I, it's interesting because people go, oh, I didn't think I would actually get you. They send a message through the website and I'm responding back like, hey, I'd be happy to talk to you about that or something. And people are like, oh, I didn't expect to get you. And all the messages come to me. They go to my email. And I try to respond to everybody, whether it's real estate related or business related or mindset related or whatever it would be. I'm just happy to help everybody win. Because if you're in a place where you've realized that you want to do something more, you want to do something different, you want to be something bigger, better than you are doing right now, I've been there, right? And so I'm more than happy to help kind of give that person a hand up or a leg up to say, you know, a 15-minute phone call might change your mindset, might change your life. And, I'm more than happy to be a part of that for anybody that is looking for it.
Super awesome, and that's very generous of you. And I'm always blown away when people just have that kind of giving attitude, and they say, I want everyone to succeed. I'll give you that free advice. I'll spend those couple of minutes because I mean I think that we've all been there. We've all been kind of felt like either like backed into a corner or out of choices or just very uncertain about the future. So I think that all of us, whether we're entrepreneurs or you listening out there, if you think that you're destined for something better and you say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, or whatever the whatever you're thinking right now or wherever you want to be, then make sure that you go to drmattmotil.com. That's drmattmotil.com, just one L, drmattmotil.com, to check out all that interesting stuff about real estate investing, the Cashflow King podcast. And if you want to reach out to Dr. Matt as well, and either tell him about your story or ask him about a quick question, or whatever you want to message you want to shoot to him, make sure you go ahead and do that. And I want to thank you, Dr. Matt, for stopping by the show and sharing your life story and sharing some of your personal ups and downs and mindset things, and kind of the things that led you to get trapped, and the ways that you thought yourself out of it, and kind of broke through to that next level and got you where you needed to go. So I really appreciate you and your story and your advice and your mindset. So thanks for stopping by and sharing all that with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our show at robertplank.com/iTunes, and like us on Facebook at robertplankshow.com.